Now, unless you're like a hardcore JDM or Nissan fan, there's a high chance that you have no idea what this thing even is. But what it actually is both a huge mistake and quite potentially one of the best cars money can buy. But should you buy one? Because pretty much for anybody outside of Japan, this is a great import. And if something goes wrong with it, like what happens then? Tell you what, how about we answer these questions and so many more? Let's do this. Now we'll get into why these are a huge mistake in a little bit, but we just need to put everything into perspective first. Firstly, what don't we like about Nissans of late? Well, to start with, it's their CVT problems, and mechanically, their reputation for reliability has slipped in recent years too. But this doesn't have a CVT. In fact, it doesn't have a transmission at all. It's a hybrid, but unlike most hybrids that basically combine the petrol engine with the electric motor to provide drive to the wheels, the 1.2 litre 3-cylinder engine under there, it's not connected to the wheels. That engine acts purely as a generator for the battery pack. There's nothing connecting it to the wheels at all. Plus, you don't have to plug it in. So therefore you avoid any of the issues and dramas that can come with the CVT or some of the mechanical dramas, and you also avoid range anxiety that you get with a full EV while still getting pretty much all of the benefits of a full EV. The next issue is that Nissans of late have generally been pretty boring to drive. Well, as you may know, Nissan and Renault are corporately aligned and share loads of engineers and parts. And Renault have produced some of the most amazing hot hatches that have ever graced our roads. The thing is, the Renault engineers that, tweaked and tuned the Clio RS and Megane RS, they've also tinkered with the handling and ride and dynamics of this thing, so it should drive amazingly well. We'll find out if it does soon. Now, in this video, we will be focusing on the performance Nismo variants, of which there are 3 sub-variants available, but the Note e-Power is also available across 5 other trim specs. But even then, what each of these will actually come with will vary depending on what options have been ticked. Also, the Note has been around since the early 2000s, but the majority available here are the 2nd generation cars and generally from the post-2017 update. Now guys, the only way that we can keep making these videos for you while still paying for like food and rent and bills is with the help of our partners. And speaking of getting help to pay for things, that brings us to our finance partner, Driver. With Driver, the application process is super easy. You can do the whole thing on your phone. You can get pre-approval in just minutes, pick the best finance package for you, and there are no hidden fees. Plus, when you finance by clicking the link down there, you're gonna get a free $150 fuel voucher. Awesome. And also, if it happens to, I don't know, rain where you are, you really need the very best wipers. So guys, stop paying a fortune for like OEM wipers, click the other link down there and get 15% off some WIPERTECH wipers. They're easy to order online, they're delivered straight to your door, they're easy to install, and they wipe water off your windscreen like their lives depend on it. Plus that link down there is gonna get you free express shipping. Okay, now let's talk about looks for a second here. Firstly, if you're trying to get a perspective of size, basically it's like Nissan's impression of a Honda Jazz or a Honda Fit, just slightly larger. But basically think of it as like a Honda Fit or a Honda Jazz wearing activewear. And who doesn't love a fit body wearing activewear? Now personally, I love the way this thing looks, but the guys that have lent us this Go Garage, they recently sold one that had a few, let's say, tasty modifications, and it looked amazing. You ready? Look at this. Although there is one thing, it's not a major drama, I just personally get annoyed by this. This is blue and everything else is red. Why couldn't they just make this bit red or just black? I'm a bit funny on the, I know that's like the e-Power color for Nissan, but I just find that annoying. Now the interior, it does take a similar design direction to the exterior. It does feel kind of like Nissan's take on the Honda Jazz or the Honda Fit. But the Nismo highlights, they're obvious, but very tasteful. So you've got these kind of metallic red surrounds around the air vents. You've got alloy pedals, more metallic red highlights here. And in this car, it's been optioned with these fantastic Recaro seats, or Recaro Nismo seats. But besides the Nismo stuff, you can kind of tell it is a budget-friendly little city car. Like the button tactility, it does feel a little bit cheap. There's like hard plastics and sort of stuff everywhere. It's what you'd expect from a car of this, I suppose, genre and category. But then when you come to the ergonomics, mainly because of these amazing Recaros, it's incredible. Like you sit lower than you'd expect. In a lot of these little cars, I find with the Honda Jazz and the Honda Fit, you sit a bit high, but with these, you kind of sunk down into the car more. Or like even as far as like steering wheel positioning goes, there's not a whole lot of adjustability, but I think the fundamentals are just spot on. So fantastic for ergonomics. Also, It is a small car, and everything's dark, like dark headliners, dark plastic everywhere, but somehow it feels more spacious than it is. Like, it doesn't feel small. Again, a lot of these really small cars you can feel very, very cramped, but not in here. It's great. Like, the distance from this arm to the door card, it's a good distance. Now, wear and tear wise in this particular car, really, really good. Like, it's got, you know, over 25,000 Ks on it, but like, even the Alcantara on the steering wheel, that still has like that nice kind of texture to it. All the textures on the top of the leather of the steering wheel is fantastic. Even the gloss black plastic that normally scratches up and looks terrible about 30 seconds after you buy the car, in this, that looks really, really good. One thing that has annoyed me, I've just realised this, it's like the front of the car. You've got all this red Nismo trim and red leather here, but then you've got the blue highlights and the blue here. Like, why couldn't they paint that bit red? That's annoying. Besides that, it's great. Now, as far as practicality goes, look, if you're someone that's had a real issue trying to find allocated spots for your 7 phones, this car has the answers. Are you ready? Here we go. There's a spot for your phone just here. There's another spot just here. There's 2 cup holders here, but also fits a phone. There's a spot under the armrest for your phone just here. In the armrest, you've got a spot for your phone just there, but there's also a spot under there for another hidden phone. I'm just going to put this back in. There we go, that's good. Then you've also got, under the steering column, a spot for your phone perfectly fitted just there. Obviously you've got door bins and cup holders there, and you've also got a little spot for, I suppose, a collection of life's filth like fingernails and bits of skin and stuff that goes there. Glove box wise, okay, 2 glove boxes, you've got a little shelf here, but then the main glove box is massive. Look at this. Like, look how deep that is. I feel like Nissan just went, okay, we've got bits of plastic and some space, let's just make it practical. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 4 centimeters taller than the star of the emotional movie, The Notebook, Ryan Gosling. This is in my driving position. Look at this. This has got more room in the back than most SUVs. Like, so much legroom, heaps of footroom. Even the seats are so comfortable. Like, there's a perfect amount of squidge to them. It's really comfy. Like, the glass house is large. I cannot get over the amount of space in the back of this thing and just how comfortable it is. It's a tiny car. This is fantastic. Even as far as practicality in the back, like for a car this small, you've got spot for phones here, you've got a USB charging port there, you've got door bins that you can actually get to without having to dislocate your shoulder or your wrist or anything. More little cubby holes for life's filth just there, but there is no kind of like pull down center armrest or anything like that. But besides that, fantastic. And wear and tear in the back of this thing, well, yeah, it's like the front. There's basically no wear and tear. Like, the seats are still in perfect condition. Door cards are fantastic. I don't think anyone's ever sat back here. Now, before we get into the boot, another thing worth noting, so what I did there, is how wide the rear doors open. That's like 90 degrees. That is a huge aperture. Fantastic, Nissan. Now in the boot, pretty impressive. Obviously it's not a huge boot because there's so much room for the passengers inside, but this is still pretty good. But then, put the seats down. Oh, hang on, wait up. Put the seats down. They don't fold flat. That's annoying. If this had like Honda's Magic seat system, this would be literally the perfect car. But even with this, you've still got, yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty good for practicality in the boot. Now look, equipment and features wise, it's going to vary depending on the trim spec and even the year model of the car, but even in the very base and early ones, you're still going to get everything that you'd expect. Like keyless entry, push button start, digital climate control and a 7-inch LCD display. But higher spec models can also include a 360-degree camera, Bluetooth automated headlights and a digital rear view mirror. But a fully optioned like Nismo model, just like this one, you're going to get selectable drive modes, more power and torque, a faster steering rack, and stiffer, sportier suspension. Plus the obvious stuff like the body additions and these amazing Recaros. Now, as far as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto goes, look, it's going to vary depending on the example you're looking at because these are an import. Some of them have been fitted with aftermarket head units, some of them haven't. The good news is this is like just a standard double-din fascia style unit. So fitting Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or any modern tech is going to be easy with that. And like, even when it comes to this safety equipment, these things are loaded with safety gear. But to take you through exactly what safety equipment that you can expect, it seems kind of appropriate that we do this one like a Japanese game show.
複数のエアバッグ ABS トラクション&スタビリティコントロールアクティブクルーズコントロール 車線逸脱警報衝突防止システムが装備されています。万歳。
Now guys, for all of the specific details of all of this and so much more, go to ReDriven.com and check out the awesome and completely free ReDriven cheat sheet. It's going to answer all of your questions. Okay, now we're going to do this driving section a little bit different than normal. See, I've never driven this car. In fact, Sam, my wonderful offsider next to me, he drove this car to the location. So you and I are going to learn what this is like to drive at the same time. So here we go. First up, performance. I've got it in sport mode and I'm just going to floor it and see what happens. Okay. Yeah, that's quick. That's like properly quick. Was not expecting that. Wow. I'm only going to the speed limit because we're in Sydney and the highway patrol here are almost like wizards with their ability to sense if you're speeding. But from 0 to the speed limit, like even mid-gear, okay. Yeah, it's a full EV. It drives like an EV. You know, like a Tesla kind of sticks you to the seat. This is not Model S Plaid or anything like that, but it is. That's got to do it again. Yeah, wow, okay. All right, cool, sweet. Now braking wise, it's got regen braking, so come off the gas, and yeah, it slows down. So you're not even using your brakes that much in the real world. We have cut forward a bit obviously here, so I have been driving it around a little bit, but yeah, I haven't really had a need to touch the brakes until you come to like a complete dead stop. Okay, so we just did some roundabouts and some corners that we're not going to show you on camera because hypothetically I might have been going a touch enthusiastically. Basically, it feels, yeah, you can tell that there's Renault RS DNA in this. It has that same kind of energetic yet confident and secure feeling to it. Like, it's almost like patting you on the back going, yeah, we're having fun here. But the whole time, it feels locked down to the ground. I'm going to go around a roundabout and kind of show you what I mean. No, I'm not, this is a truck. Idiot. Here we go. Like, no understeer. No understeer. That was, again, handling wise, fantastic. This would be so fun on like a winding mountain road because you've got all of this torque, like instant torque and throttle response. So like hammering through some corners would be an absolute ball. Also, like this has a faster steering rack being a Nismo, and the steering's fantastic. Like there's like, I wouldn't say there's like, you know, Porsche communication or anything through the steering wheel, but it just, like again, it's fun to steer. It's fun to go through some corners. And the turning circle is so tight. Now, noise-wise, there is a bit of road noise. When I say a bit of road noise, there's a lot of road noise. Like at freeway speeds, I would imagine this thing would get pretty noisy in here. There's lots of hard plastics. And obviously, there's probably stripped out a lot of sound deadening to try to reduce some weight. The other weird thing is that the engine, there's no real correlation between what your right foot does and what the engine does, because the engine doesn't power the wheels. The engine is purely charging your battery. So you'll kind of floor it and come off the gas and stuff. And the engine, yeah, it's weird to get used to. The engine doesn't sound too bad. Being a 3-cylinder, it's kind of got a cool kind of raspy kind of noise to it. But it's just strange that you'll go to accelerate and the engine doesn't make it. It's just silent. But then all of a sudden the engine goes, oh, that's a bit weird. Also, other noises, there's no rattles, there's no squeaks, there's no weird sounds at all. It feels and sounds super tight, like it's just like it's chiseled from granite. It feels very, very tight and energetic. But then on top of like all of the cool performance-y stuff, it's like the size of a Honda Jazz or a Honda Fit, so it's super easy to park. Vision out of it is easy, really easy to judge all the parameters, plus it's loaded with tech like parking sensors everywhere and a 360-degree camera, so it does all of the normal life, boring city living kind of stuff incredibly well, but then put your foot down and like, again, brilliant. Look, overall, you know what this thing's like to drive? Imagine an incredibly perfect Clio RS, then shrink that down in size, give it instant throttle response, way more torque. That's what this is like to drive. That, for me, sounds kind of like the perfect driver's car. Now, remember at the start of the video where I said this is a huge mistake? Well, the mistake isn't so much the car, it's Nissan for not actually ever importing it here to Australia or really anywhere outside of Japan. Like these things, they have a market, and that's even when hardly anyone knows they exist in the first place. Can you imagine how popular these would be with like Nissan's marketing budget behind it? Nissan, you guys have really made a mistake with this. This could be a huge seller. You're stuffed up. But because it hasn't been officially brought here by Nissan, that means it's a grey import. And that can bring with it some risks. See guys, we have heard some horror stories. We're talking about falsified documents, even like entire gauge clusters being swapped out to show lower kilometres on the car. If you are interested in buying one of these, or really any grey import, it's got to come from a reputable importer. The guys at Go Garage, they imported this and they supplied us this to a video. That's who you should go and see. Their link is down there somewhere. Also, even though the pricing for these kick off from around about $20,000 here in Australia, the really, really good mint ones, they're asking closer to 40. Now that might seem like a lot of money for what this car is, but think about it. What other car can do what this thing can do? Like, think about this for a second. For like $40,000, you're looking at 2.9 litres per 100 Ks for fuel efficiency. That means theoretically, a full tank will get you 1,300 kilometres, plus it's still hugely entertaining to drive. Even like the wheels and tyres are small, so the consumables aren't going to cost you much money. What other car for 40 grand can do that? Okay, so it's all positives so far. Is that trend going to continue? Well, sort of, kind of. Let's get into what goes wrong with them. Let's start with the exterior. Now, like the only common problem that we could find is that sometimes the third brake light can fail. It's because water can leak in, just a little bit of water, and start mucking around with the electronics that run it. It's not a major issue. We're talking small amounts and just can kind of blow the bulbs out, but it should be easily fixed. Now, being a Nissan of this generation, and this isn't exclusive to the Note, but there are a few little sporadic reports of electronic gremlins like door lock actuators, power mirrors kind of playing up a little bit here and there. When we did the research on this, we couldn't find any of these related to the Note specifically, but over time, they're probably going to happen. But the biggest issue these might have has actually less to do with the car itself, more with how it's treated. Like, let's say if it gets hit in a car park or maybe it run over something. It's replacing body panels. See, like the panel beater or the body shop that repairs it, they can't just pop down to their local Nissan dealership and go, hey, I need a new bonnet and front bar and headlight, because they won't have them in stock. This is an import. So if you do need to get replacement parts, they've got to come from Japan. That can take time, that can cost money. If it's just a little scuff, you can still drive around, but if it's a decent impact and it needs proper repairing and you're waiting for these parts, how long are you going to be waiting for those parts? How long is a piece of string? Now inside, it's actually pretty good news. We couldn't find what we would call too many common faults. There are a couple of reports of the air conditioning not working, but the thing is, this car shares loads of components with other Nissans and Renault models, so getting those parts and getting it fixed, it shouldn't be too much of a drama. Also, like the exterior, and this isn't specific to the Note because we couldn't find any complaints about the Note, but this generation of Nissan and Renault, they can have a few little electronic dramas, so if you are looking at one of these, push every button and just make sure it works. It should. Now mechanically, or I should say electronically, what goes wrong with these? I can't tell you because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim is.
So my job this week is actually pretty easy. In terms of big, serious, catastrophic failures, it's extremely unlikely. Yeah, there are some problems, but very unlikely to have a big blow up. There are some cases where the e-power generator and the drive motor have failed. In some cases that's done under warranty, in other cases not under warranty, and it's extremely expensive. So long-term prospects for that, it is going to be expensive to fix. But I do want to emphasise, at this point, not a common problem. There are also some cases of the inverter and the hybrid control drive system failing, and some software glitches too. But at the moment, the software stuff is taken care of by Nissan, but long-term still remains to be seen. There is some anecdotal information out there about how fragile these drive systems are. For example, some that have been in relatively minor accidents tend to have fairly expensive repair bills, which is not typical for something with an ordinary engine and gearbox. But that is probably more of an insurance company issue more than an owner cost repair issue. The actual internal combustion engine that runs the generator and the electric drive motor and charges the battery is a pretty reliable unit. It's made in a few different versions and used in Renaults and Nissans and some Mercedes-Benz too. And overall is actually pretty reliable. But like all engines, you do see some, mainly service-related issues like water pumps and ignition coil complications. But typically, if well serviced, at this stage, you probably won't see any major issues. A few other isolated reports of the air conditioning and mainly the compressor failing, which is a very expensive unit, and some reports of premature wheel bearing failure too. But if you're looking at one or road testing one, just make sure all that works and make sure there are no weird noises and you should be good. Look, overall, it's a pretty good system. The way it's designed means the engine is always operating in its optimum load range, which is good for efficiency. Some say the system is unnecessarily complicated, but overall for efficiency, it's a pretty good thing.
Okay, now before we recommend buying one of these or not, and look, this is a huge call, I know. This should be the future of hot hatches. Don't yell at me in the comments yet, let me explain. See, once upon a time, hot hatches used to be small, practical and affordable little runabouts that did their very best to put a smile on your face through engaging driving characteristics. These days, like, hot hatches have become obsessed with like Nürburgring lap times and acceleration figures and all that sort of stuff, all the while getting bigger and heavier and far more expensive. Even when it comes to future EV hot hatches, like the Ioniq 5N is guaranteed to be an absolute weapon, but it's going to be asking over $100,000, and with around about 600 horsepower, like, where and when are you ever going to use all of that performance? You certainly can't use it on the street without risking going to jail. Guys, this is the answer. It's fuel efficient, it's practical, it's easy to live with, it's affordable, it's reliable, but at the same time, and most importantly from a driving perspective, it feels so much faster than it is while delivering so much guilt-free fun all of the time. Okay, look, a Volkswagen Polo GTI or a Ford Fiesta ST, they are going to be so much faster than this in pretty much every scenario, but like, who cares? Because this is easily as entertaining to drive, it's just as practical, and it's going to cost you thousands of dollars less to actually own and run. So after all of that, should you buy one? Oh my God, yes you should. I know, again, massive call, but this is one of the most impressive cars I've ever dealt with. So, would you buy one, or would you buy a Polo GTI or a Fiesta ST or a Clio or something like that? What do we think? I'm genuinely intrigued. What do you guys think of this thing? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. Some of the most outstanding hot hatches ever to grace our roads. And but even then,
The engine is always running in its optimal sort of load range. Some say the whole system, I just said load rage.
I wasn't sure if you said that or not.
I did.
But the big issue, and speaking of getting help paying for things, me brain, come on.